Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today.
Historical Men in Crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Historical Men in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Historical Men in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about Paul Ogorzow, also known as the F-Spawn Killer. All images in this video are used under fair use under United States copyright law of 1976 and are used in conjunction with my commentary. Now, Paul Ogorzow was a German serial killer and sexual predator who was known as the S-Spawn murderer for the series of murders he committed during Nazi-era Germany on the S-Bahn railway lines. Now, during the time of World War II, Paul Ogorzow was one of the most dangerous predators in an extremely dark period, and this dangerous predator was a man in crisis ever since he was born. Now, Paul Ogorzow was born in 1912 to a single mother, Marie Saga, and this single mother didn't want the child to be embarrassed during that time, so they wrote on the birth certificate, marking it with 3 crosses since there was no father to be named on the document, and then the boy was named Paul Saga. Now, the boy Paul Saga went on for 12 years under his single mother until he was adopted by Johann Ogorzow, and once he was adopted by Johann Ogorzow, that's when I believe Paul Ogorzow basically was on the road to becoming a man in crisis. Because what happens with many beta males who are raised by single mothers is many beta males have really serious issues as related to male authority figures due to the fact that they grew up under the authority of single mothers. And as they grow up under the authority of single mothers, and those women go out here and then marry another man, what happens is that those males become extremely resentful about the whole idea of another man taking charge of their home. And this is what I believe happened with Paul Ogorzow. I believe what happened was he got upset because his mother went out here and brought another man into their family life. And once they brought that other man into their family life, this is what laid the foundation, I believe, for his resentment of women and laid the foundation for his anger that he had regarding women. Now, this anger was something I believe Paul Ogorzow basically held inside of himself as he was out here working in his father's place at his adopted father's farm, and then later finding still work in a steel foundry. And he was basically having a sense of low self-worth and a low sense of purpose. And this is possibly one of the reasons why he wound up joining the Nazi Party in Germany. And as Paul Ogorzow joined the party of Nazi Germany, he was feeling, again, a sense of a little bit of self-worth, and he was rising up the ranks in the Nazi Party. And as he rose up the ranks in the Nazi Party, he then finally got a job with the National Railroad. And as he got a job with the National Railroad, he was working on the S-Bahn. And as he worked his way up the S-Bahn, this is where he started to really become more dysfunctional, because as he was building his life up, he then went out here and got married to a woman who was 2 years older to himself. And that's another red flag when it comes to beta males, because beta males, again, they have serious mommy issues as related to women being the ones in charge of them. So him marrying a woman 2 years older than him has related to his issues of women having power, and he felt powerless about taking his own power. And that's why he basically married this older woman and then had 2 kids with this older woman. And as he was married to this older woman, what he was doing was participating in the secret world, a place that beta males love to go because many beta males do not feel secure about their own natural masculinity, and what they will do is separate their lives into two different worlds. One will be the traditional world where they are a successful professional person who's living by all of the rules and standards of a society like a Nazi Germany, and the other place will be the secret world where they feel like they can express their natural masculinity. And in that place, this is where these individuals start participating in deviant behavior, and they participate in this deviant behavior because they feel like this is the place where they feel safe about being the man that they actually want to be. And when they go here, they want to feel like they can finally participate in the behaviors they originally wanted to participate in as related to doing harm to women. And this is where I believe the Paul Ogorzow wind up on the road to participating in the violence he was participating in. Now, oftentimes, as part of his double life, what would happen is Paul Ogorzow, as he was working on the railroad, he would be seen playing with his children or tending to his garden behind his apartment building and working or tending to the cherry orchard that he had. And while his wife said he became violent and abusive, making unfounded claims of being unfaithful to him, that all falls in line with beta male behavior, because a lot of beta males, what happens with them is a lot of these men, they become extremely insecure. While they'll give a woman a lot of power in the codependent relationship they have with them, many of these men will make accusations that this woman is cheating, and what they're doing is projecting their ideas onto that woman because they don't have confidence in themselves as a man about the state of their relationship. And because these men do not have confidence in themselves as related to the state of their relationship, what they'll do is make accusations against that woman and go out here and become violent and abusive towards her because this man is insecure in himself and does not trust that woman because he doesn't really trust himself as a man to be able to be confident in himself to maintain that relationship. So that's another root of Paul Ogorzow's anger towards women. He really had a lot of anger towards females being in authority and females having power. And what he wanted to do was abuse his wife. And when abusing his wife wasn't enough, this is why he went into the secret world. And this is why he went into the secret world to participate in the violence that he wanted to participate in towards his mother and towards his wife, but he didn't want any evidence of this in his life. So in order for him to have his smooth world, what Paul Ogorzow did was he went out here and participated in his violence on the railways of the S-Bahn, and as he was on the railways of the S-Bahn, it provided the perfect cover for his violence because anybody who he did harm to would wind up disappearing into his smooth world, and it wouldn't cause him any sort of conflicts, problems, or obstacles as related to him being caught in these crimes. So, like many of the beta males I have talked about in this series, Paul Ogorzow started out on his early series of attacks by going after solitary housewives whose husbands had been called up to serve the Nazi army in World War II. And as these women were on the trains, he would start in 1939 by randomly assaulting these women and sexually assaulting these women. And he would go out here and attack these women by sexually assaulting them and sexually violating them over the course of 2 years. And as he was getting gratification from participating in this violence against these women, he then escalated his behavior even further after not getting enough pleasure from going out here and violating these women and then attempting to go out here and strangle them, and it wasn't enough for him. So he escalated his behavior, and he escalated his behavior using a new modus operandi that was far more violent. And he went from going out here to going out here to sexually assaulting, and sexually violating women, to going out here and participating in a series of murders. And he participated in this series of murders where he went out here beating women with a metal rod, because originally he was strangling them with a lead cord, and he would beat these women with an iron bar, and then he would hurl their bodies from the train. And he would also go out here and slash women and hurl them from the train. And he has been doing this for over the course of a year, bashing women in their skulls, violating their bodies. I mean, he even did this to pregnant women. I mean, this man was a complete monster, and he went out here going after women who were just trying to just get from one point to the other. And in one of his cases, he saw one of these women who had been lost and just was looking for a way to get home, and he took advantage of this woman. I mean, this man was a monster, just going from place to place, just going out here participating in this series of sexual violence. And again, he was participating in this series of sexually violent acts because Paul Ogorzow was just angry, I believe, at his mother for going out here and marrying his stepfather. And he was angry because his mother had abdicated the authority over the home. And he was angry over the fact, I believe, that his mother gave away power over the home. And this is what the foundation of, I believe, Paul Ogorzow's power issues started. And it was those power issues that I believe led to him going out here and marrying this older woman and feeling powerless because he just wanted to be in this codependent relationship that mirrored that of his mother. But in this one, he wanted to abuse his wife. And as he abused his wife, it wasn't enough to satisfy the anger that he had in the secret world. And this is where he started to go on the trains, and the trains provided him great cover for him to continue living his double life in the secret world. And as he lived his double life in the secret world, Paul Ogorzow was out here participating in this series of murders. And as he participated in these series of murders, he was out here pretending to be the model employee by day and the good father by day, but at night he was a predator on a spree of sexual violence and serial murder. And as he was on this whole road to participating in these crimes, he was living in a place where he felt like he had lots of power, because in the secret world he could be the man that he wanted to be, and he could go out here and feel like he could have the power that he always wanted to have. However, as he was committing all of these crimes, he thought he could get away with these crimes. He thought, oh, because it's World War II, everybody's gonna blame it on a certain religious group that was being persecuted at the time, and he thought all of it would fall either on that certain religious group or certain immigrants, and he thought they would be the ones to take the blame for all of these crimes. However, as the Nazi Party continued to do research, because this was making the whole nation look bad, and they didn't want the image of the Aryan looking bad, they still did more of an investigation, and they began to find more and more evidence as related to the entire case of Paul Ogorzow. And as they found more evidence as related to the case of Paul Ogorzow, they began to connect the dots as related to the case of Paul Ogorzow, and eventually started finding clues that tied the case together. And as they started to tie the case together on Paul Ogorzow, a serial killer who had been stalking women over the course of 2 years, they started to put together a case as related to the evidence, and eventually started to build up a case as related to the clues, realizing that the murderer could not have been somebody who was traveling on the trains. It had to have been somebody working on the trains, and it had to have been somebody working on the trains because the pattern of murders basically fit that of somebody who had been working there. And eventually they came into contact with Paul Ogorzow. They picked him up at his apartment, And they confiscated his uniforms, and as they did forensic research on his uniforms, they began to find blood on them. And Paul Ogorzow tried to lie and say that it was his wife was sick, and that's why his blood was on her clothing, and or it came from a cut on his finger. And but even though his wife tried to substantiate his story, the police saw that the blood stain on his jacket might have been as a result of a struggle, and then eventually Paul Ogorzow eventually wound up confessing to these crimes. And as he confessed to these crimes, he eventually wound up being put on trial by the Nazi Party. And after they put him on trial for this murder, what they did was they executed Paul Ogorzow for his heinous murder, and they wound up decapitating him by the guillotine. This was how the Paul Ogorzow came to an end. But Paul Ogorzow basically was a textbook beta male. He was a beta male who came from a single mother household, and he was a beta male who had issues with women and female authority figures because he had mommy issues, and it was those mommy issues, I believe, that led to the foundation for him looking to go out here and participate in this series of sex crimes and serial murders. And when I take a critical examination of Paul Ogorzow, if he definitely fits the pattern and profile of a beta male, like I talk about in The Man Crisis, and his behavior definitely fits that of a beta male looking to escalate his criminal behavior because he wants to express his anger towards his mother or other, and as related to her giving away power. And he's so angry at his mother that he takes out his anger on other women. And this is why Paul Ogorzow, I believe, went out here participating in all of these heinous acts. Acts so heinous, even the Nazi Party was disturbed by them. I mean, this is a special brand of monster that even other monsters like those in the Nazi Party saw him as a monster. And this is just, again, shows how sick a guy could be. Even during World War II, these beta males, again, they take things to another level. And this beta male was one of the most evil and most reprehensible creatures to ever walk the earth, and it just shows how evil beta males can be when they are out here in the world. I mean, when I look at Paul Ogorzow, I just see one of the most depraved individuals I have ever read about, and I've read about some deeply depraved individuals like Ed Gein and others that have basically creeped me out as I've done these historical men in crisis series. And Paul Ogorzow is in that top 5 of guys who just basically creeped me out as I read his story. And again, his story is fitting right in line with that pattern and profile of beta males, and shows me all of the warning signs of beta males that I saw as related to their behavior. I mean, I saw the base of the single mother household, the roots of misogyny because of the anger at his mom, the roots of anger as related to submitting to a male authority figure like a stepfather, and the male simmering and boiling in anger about not having any sort of power, and the male looking to submit to a female authority figure he had anger with, which was his wife, and then looking to abuse that wife because he did not trust her in the relationship because he feared that she would be going out here and looking to betray him the same way he believed his mother went out here and betrayed him. And looking at that woman, and again, thinking about hurting other women while having his, in the secret world, while he had his smooth world in the real world. I mean, everything I talk about in The Man Crisis, I saw in Paul Ogorzow's story. And what's really scary about Paul Ogorzow's story is that many people still haven't learned the lessons as related to The Man Crisis today from reading the historical stories of men like Paul Ogorzow, because there's a pattern and profile for this behavior, and this pattern and profile for this behavior, this is why many beta males, again, they participate in this spectrum of violent behaviors, and we need to acknowledge this spectrum of violent behaviors because this violent behavior has a pattern and a profile most people don't want to talk about. And even in Nazi Germany, they didn't want to talk about the root of that problem. And most people don't want to acknowledge that many beta males, again, come from single mothers. And the single mothers always lead to these type of males who go out here and make life miserable, even in miserable situations like World War II and Nazi Germany, showing me that the man crisis is historically global, and the man crisis has a pattern and a profile, and we need to acknowledge that pattern and profile as related to these beta males, because I look at Paul Ogorzow's story and it shows me how evil one of these males could be when people don't want to acknowledge how dangerous they are, and the danger that they provide to the entire society when people don't go out here and look out to check these guys and see the clear and present danger that they are. Now, if you want to learn more about what leads to a man becoming a man in crisis and the pattern and profile of their dysfunctional behavior, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and even Walmart. And if you want to see me make more videos in the historical Men in Crisis series, you can send a donation to the Cash App, the Patreon, or the PayPal. And if I know something about that individual or I want to do research on that individual, I will make a historical Men in Crisis video. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.